Radical Radio presents Radical Talk with the Think Tank. What is radicalism? Radicalism is the beliefs or actions of individuals, groups, or organizations who advocate for thorough or complete social and or political reform to achieve an alternative vision of American society. Join us as we engage in conversations regarding radical changes to lifestyles as they relate to physical, mental, and social well-being in North Chicago, Illinois. And let us know if these changes can relate to your city too. Listen, join the founder of the North Chicago Think Tank, William Coleman, and the founder and host of the Radical Radio podcast for an oh-so-radical discussion. Let's go, y'all. What's good, y'all? Y'all already know it's Wednesday, so it is time to have Radical Talk with the North Chicago Think Tank. We have William Coleman in the building, the founder and visionary of the North Chicago Think Tank. If you don't know, now you know. He is definitely making waves and bringing a lot of great conversation to our platform, to this platform, to bring out to our podcast, as well as to bring to the community of North Chicago, Illinois, i.e. y'all, the North Chicago Think Tank. So if you don't know, the banner is right there. You can go ahead and click that banner and you can go ahead and follow the North Chicago Think Tank Facebook page. We are about to have a really great discussion. I'm really excited about this discussion, y'all, because it's very near and dear, very, very near and dear to my heart. So, hey, y'all go ahead and get with it and let's go ahead and get this talk in. First and foremost, what I want to do is I do want to make sure that I let you guys know what the North Chicago Think Tank is all about. And the North Chicago Think Tank is a policy research, reform, and advocacy focused project aimed at improving the quality of life for citizens of North Chicago, Illinois, by building and growing local power, creating spaces for Black imagination and innovation, and centering Black joy. We have been talking in this series about how we can make our communities flourish, thrive, and prosper. I got them down because I've been in it. I've been in this discussion. We've been doing this since December, y'all. And it has been powerful discussions. If you don't know, already know, I am your girl, Coach L, the founder and visionary of the Radical Radio podcast. And we are going to go ahead and start diving in some good discussion, y'all. Tonight, we are going to be talking about the difference between exploited and the disadvantaged. You know, those words, y'all know those words, they show up in a lot of mission statements in our communities, right? They show up in a lot of mission statements in low income communities, right? So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. And I believe that it is going to be an amazing discussion. William, how you doing, bro?
I'm doing really good. As always, I'm coming to you live from Acapulco, Mexico. Yeah. And I just went surfing yesterday, tried something new.
Yes.
I wasn't able to stand up on the board, but I tried something new. So
absolutely. And Billy, tell the people what you've been doing in Acapulco.
So I've been learning how to dive. I'm training to become a dive master, which means I'll have the ability to dive recreationally up to around 150 feet. I've swam with whales. I went and saw eagle rays. So I'm learning from indigenous people in Mexico who own a dive shop, and they're teaching me how to dive. And it's part of my self-care plan from 2020 and 2021. It was really rough, so I decided to take a step back, still do some work with the North Chicago Think Tank like we're doing now, but really focus on something a little different from social activism so I could get away, breathe, reset, and come back refreshed.
Absolutely. And like you said, I do want to kind of piggyback on one of the things that we did talk about. We did talk about this before earlier in the series, and we talked about why it's important when you are, operating in your community, and you're really active, being an advocate in your community and an activist and really pushing for social change. Why is it so important that you have to take a step back and take the time to, kind of move away from that? Can you hear me?
You're asking, yeah, are you asking, are you going to comment on why it's so?
No, I'm asking you. I want you to share with the people why it's important.
Yeah, we've been hearing a lot of think pieces about pouring from empty cups. And, we know that there is work that needs to be done. There is no argument on that, but burnout is very real. Mental health crises are real. Trauma responses are real. And we have to learn how to make sure we're strong enough to help the people that we want to help. Make sure we're healthy enough to help the people that we're trying to help. And if you're not healthy, you're not in a position to really help others.
There you go. And like I said, y'all, if y'all have missed the series, we have been going live every other week on Wednesdays. Go back on the Radical Radio page and check out some of these episodes. We are also on all podcast platforms, so you can look for the bonus series of Radical Radio with the North Chicago Think Tank and really listen to these episodes because they're really powerful. We talked about a lot of stuff. I'm still like floating when we talked about the community guardian. So y'all, it's some things that can change. And it's good information for not only the North Chicago, Illinois community, but all communities. If you are one that really wants to, make change in your community, and some of these things would benefit your community, you can also do what Billy is doing, having the North Chicago Think Tank. You can also, make these radical changes or propose these radical changes in your own community. Angela, thank you for joining us. I love having you here always because you're so knowledgeable and you have so much to add. So thank you for joining us, Queen. I appreciate you. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into it. Today, we're talking about the difference between exploited versus advantage, we're talking the difference between exploited and disadvantaged, right?
Yep.
What is the difference, Billy, between between overexploited? It's overexploited. I'm sorry. Overexploited and disadvantaged when referring to at-risk populations. We got a lag. Hold on. We don't want no lags here. Hold on just a second. Bro, do you think you can
you hear me?
Okay, there we go. I can hear you now.
Okay, so with every episode, we start with the definition, right? And when we talk about a population being at risk, it simply means they're exposed to harm or danger, right? So when we talk about the Black and Brown communities, talk about any group of people who are exposed to harm or danger, we use the term at risk. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't lean to the left or right. It's pretty balanced. They're just an at-risk group. But what happens when we choose disadvantage versus overexploited is it centers different.
Hold on, Billy, because we got a lag. I do not want anybody to miss this conversation. Hold on. I'm thinking how we can fix this because this needs to be fixed. Maxi, should we have him log out and log back in possibly?
Let me see if I can turn off my Wi-Fi.
Okay. Y'all give us a second while we get
How is it now?
It's good. It's good.
How is it? Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine. But I think it might. Okay, go ahead.
So we were talking about the difference. You can hear me?
No, go ahead and say what you're going to say. Let me see if it lags.
Okay, so like we said, we start each episode with the definition, and we talked about what it means to be at risk. But now we're talking about why it's important to have a distinction.
Ugh. All right, y'all, just give me a second because we are having some technical difficulties. And this is a very extremely like big topic. So I don't want to miss anything on this episode. So we're going to wait for Billy to come back in, and then hopefully we'll get a better connection.
And you got, I'm sorry, it kicked
That's
me out.
okay. Y'all remember, as we said, he's way in Acapulco. So, things aren't,
Sorry.
aren't always going to be great for us. So we going to rock this thing though. We going to rock it.
Okay, take three. This is take
There
three.
we go.
Okay, so when we talk about someone being disadvantaged, the definition of disadvantaged is definition 2B in the Merriam-Webster's dictionary.
Mm-hmm.
It says it's the quality that makes achievement difficult.
Okay.
A quality that makes achievement difficult. But when you think about that, that makes it about you.
Mm-hmm.
That you have a quality that makes achievement difficult, right? And that's
Right.
dangerous, right?
Yeah.
Because you have someone who is being exploited start to center themselves in the problem. They think that they are the problem and they have to find the solution and they have to find the resources and they have to do everything, right?
Gotcha.
I'm going to tell you the definition of exploit.
Okay.
Exploit means to make productive use of, to utilize, to make use of meanly or unfairly for one's own advantage.
Okay.
Right? So when we say exploit, the question then becomes who's exploiting? Right? I'm an exploited person. The question then centers who's exploiting you. And
Yeah.
that's a more appropriate conversation, right? So if
Yeah.
someone take the immigrant population, someone will say immigrants are disadvantaged,
Yeah.
making it about them. No, immigrants are overexploited.
Wait.
And let's have a conversation about who's exploiting them and why those resources are being taken from them or they're not giving them access to those resources. And that makes a clearer line of vision to the real problem, right?
Right.
To creating real solutions. And this all circles around what we know about white supremacy and domination, right? And we
Mm-hmm.
have to understand no one likes to say, I'm being utilized for someone else's profit,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
right? No one likes to say that. No one
Yeah.
likes to feel that, right? So we kind of lean into saying, well, I'm just disadvantaged. I'm disadvantaged. But it's so dangerous to do that to yourself because it's so gray. It's so ambiguous, right? It's like, oh, I'm a disadvantaged youth. That makes everything about you and not about the people who are exploiting you as a at-risk youth. And I think
Right.
it's important that we see the difference between those two terms
Mm-hmm.
and we start saying, no, 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 no. We could skip that disadvantage talk and we're gonna start talking about exploitation. We're gonna start talking about who's exploiting.
Yeah, and like you said, at risk. I always hear the word at risk youth. You can't hear me? You can't hear me?
Let me see. Maybe it's on maybe my Bluetooth turned on.
Give me a second, you guys. Thank y'all for being patient with us.
That's what it was.
Okay, that's cool. So I hear a lot, at risk youth, and I hear, all these different terms. I want you to be able to explain to our people in our communities why it's so important that we know these definitions. Because a lot of times we'll be using terms that we've just heard, not really understanding that those terms don't serve us. They don't serve us at all. So can you like explain why it's so important, and what we can do to make sure that we are understanding how these terms are being placed and how they affect us when we're just looking at them as just normal terms when they're really not. You get what I'm saying?
Yes.
Okay.
I think it comes down to literacy. I keep pumping literacy. Like, everyone should be reading. I'm sorry. I'm reading graffiti, you reading hieroglyphics, you reading scripture, you read medical text. I don't care what, but you really need to be able to read and decipher what's being said and ask yourself a very important question. Who benefits from this narrative?
Right.
That is so important, especially when you're from an at-risk community, because that's how the risk just graduates from one generation to the next generation to the next generation, right? You have to start asking yourself, who benefits from my suffering, right? And that will start to make you see why your suffering is continuing, because what will happen is, as exploited people who find themselves in poverty, we start to internalize our exploitation. And so we say, it must be something I'm doing. I'm not working hard enough. I'm not grinding hard enough. I'm not doing this enough. And the result is that I'm still poor. I'm still in these situations. And that's just not true. And it's all about accountability, right? When you can't find the reason why something is happening to you, there's no way for you to ensure accountability, to say how out, right? That's a dangerous place for us, because then we just stay in that pit. We just stay in that place, and then we start to become depressed. We start to become, and then we start to fight each other. And you can kind of see that happening in our communities, where you're starting to see this because we're arguing with other disadvantaged people instead of saying who's exploiting us and keeping us in this situation.
Absolutely. Yes. Angela says some population as disadvantaged because or generational exploitation.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
That's the thing. That word, the exploitation piece, it really brings in a new dynamic. You know what I mean? When you start to say that word, it expands who's involved. And that's what we're trying to get at, right? If someone is, say, for example, someone is a sex worker, and I believe that all work is work, but sex workers can easily be exploited, right? But if you're just looking at him or her as the sex worker, everything is about her. But you can't have sex work without customers.
There you go. Who is exploiting?
Exploiting this population,
right?
And that kind of brings the scope larger to say, maybe we're not factoring in a very important piece.
Absolutely.
Maybe considering a very important part to this conversation, and that's why we're spinning our wheels. That's why we are looking for solution and arguing with each other and going through all this stuff, because we're not even factoring in a huge part of the equation, which is the person who's profiting from your exploitation.
And that goes back to how, and I'm a credit you. I have to credit you, because listen, let me tell y'all something. When I tell you, I say this all the time on Radical Radio, it means a lot about the people that you have around you and the people that you have in your circle. When I first met Billy, I remember him always saying, no, you're exploiting us, and I would hear that word, and I was like, yeah, this is more of them exploiting us versus us just putting ourselves in this. Like, we're not putting ourselves in this position because we have sustained so much. They have put us through so much racism and things like that. We didn't just turn out to be aggressive. We were exploited, which turned us into those that were aggressive, right? If we look at our people, and a lot of times you say, Black people are just so mad. Why?
Why?
Because we've been exploited for so long that mentally we've had enough. Like we're fed up, and everything in our life, like we just angry, or we just feel like you trying to take advantage of us. And a lot of times, even with black men are so firm on you not gonna disrespect me. Why? Why do they automatically go to the first thing you hear a black man say, or a brown person say is, you're not going to disrespect me? Because they have been disrespected for so many years, and they like, no, we're not taking it anymore. You know what I'm saying? So I credit you and I thank you for that, because it did allow me, once you said it, it allowed me to realize he's right, number one. But it also opened up the gate for me to ask more questions and be able to see things in a bigger light. For instance, the judicial system. Yes, you do want to lock up, those that are in these low income areas. Why? Because they become a number that you need to reach a common goal, right? Exploiting. And when you say that word, you have to think a little bit deeper. You have to go a little bit further. And like Billy just said, you have to figure, okay, who's exploiting us here? And it starts to make sense. And what I really believe that's the mindset shift that we all need in our communities to understand what's really going on in our community. That's why we're so quick to want to get the politicians on our side. But hold up. Hold up. Because in getting that politician on your side, do you know if that politician is exploiting you or not? Just asking the question. You get what I'm saying? Yes. So I thank you for that, because you taught me something there, bro. And I'm thankful for that. I really am. Angela said it's like saying the crab in the bucket syndrome. Someone puts the crabs in the bucket is not the natural habitat of the crab. Right.
100%. And I think that, when you talk about just like, when we say to make productive use of, right? And people would say, that sounds weird. Why that's made up. Ain't nobody doing that to you. I'm gonna give you a figure. In 2019, according to this, I think it's the Selig Center for Economic Growth, buying power was at 1.4 trillion.
Right.
1.4 trillion dollars floating around in the black pocket. Right. So you mean to tell me that ain't nobody looking to score on 1.4 trillion? Okay. Yeah. You can say that if you want to. You really can, but that's why we have to start using the word exploited, not only in past tense, right? When we say exploited, we think, oh, the slave ships and they came and got from West Africa, these different places and blah, blah, blah. No, exploiting.
Right now.
It's happening right now.
Yeah.
Because there's systems in place that keep people in power that just siphon things from you, your energy, your intellectual property, your money. That's why a lot of us are still broke. We're like,
absolutely.
It's not by accident that you still don't own property. It's not by accident that you still don't have wills and estates and just wealth. That's not by accident. And I think that's what happens when you change the language and you say, I'm exploited, right? Now, unfortunately, well, we'll talk about this later, but yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, see, this is what I'm talking about, y'all. Good conversation of things that we really need to start thinking about, just to become the people that we are called to be. We weren't called to live, in poverty. That's not how we're called to live at all. But again, we're going to dive into it some more. Why is using the term overexploited when I think we kind of talked about it, but we'll go into it a little bit more. Why is using the term overexploited when referring to at-risk populations so radical?
It's so radical because it just speaks to dismantling, right? It's saying we are realizing that we are being exploited. We're trying to figure out who exactly it is, but we know it's somebody. Yeah. So it's radical because it's dangerous. It's dangerous because now you're starting to point to your attacker. right?
Yeah.
Your attackers, the heat kind of goes up, right? And they don't want to be accountable, right? So people
Yeah.
at the banking industry, they're looking at, even Amazon workers, they're starting to unionize. Like all these things are happening, and people are like, I'm not just working, I'm being exploited. I'm getting
Yes.
paid less than I should be getting paid. The system is inflating all these prices, and I just can't get up. And I'm realizing that I am working as hard as I possibly can. It's not me. It's
Right.
not,
It's not me.
and that is it's a freedom,
Yeah.
because then it changes the conversation, and you can hold someone accountable.
Absolutely.
And that is, they don't want that.
They don't want that. Latricia, thank you for joining us, Queen. I appreciate you. Angela said, because it'll hold someone accountable. Absolutely. And that's just with anything. When people aren't doing what's right, they don't want to be held accountable. Why? Because they know that they're doing something that exploits other people or other situations. And when we talk about radical, y'all, radical is relating to or affecting the fundamental nature of something, far reaching or thorough. And I love far reaching because I feel like if we don't tackle these things in a radical way, we won't see the change, right? And the reason being is because our minds are we're starting to shift our minds. We're starting to really explore what's really going on in our community. Not just the fact that it doesn't look like that looks shady and walking away from it, but no, we're starting to ask questions. We're starting to have dialogue. We're starting to have conversations to say, yo, why is this like this? Or why don't we have this in our community when we need this? And I really, when I think about you, Billy, and the North Chicago think tank, like, I applaud you all because you ask the questions why. And we have to stop being so quick to say okay and start saying why. Because we want to know, why is it like this? Why don't we have what we need in our communities? Why are we going through such turmoil? Why isn't there any help, financial literacy, to make sure that we're not, just continuing to take generation after generation into poverty? Why?
And I want to kind of, extend or kind of go deeper into that conversation about why it's so radical, because also the notion of professionalism protects exploitation, right? So you start to say, there's no safe space for you to go to your boss and be like, dude, you trying to play me. You exploiting me. I feel exploited. They start you up out of there.
Yep.
That's the usual response. And so it's so radical because now we have to actually interrogate professionalism itself, right? Say, okay, we in this space and y'all acting real weird, right? We in this space and everybody got on their button-up collars and they suits and they dresses, but y'all being real violent right now, and there's no space, there's no language for that right now.
Absolutely.
Why this is so radical. So if you went into a professional space and you're like, I feel exploited, or I feel like we're exploiting this group, you'll see that violence, and it's going to be weird for you because they're going to display that professional violence.
Absolutely.
And that's a conversation that's still kind of under the rug. People don't talk about professional violence, but Black people, brown people, we know that professional
experience it.
Where they let you know, you better stay in your place, you better be quiet, or else you're not going to be able to feed your family, you're not going to be able to pay your rent, we're going to fire you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've been there. And let me tell y'all, like, there was a time where I was so stressed out. This is the last job I had in corporate America, and I vowed never to go back to corporate America. The last job that I had, I was going through so much turmoil in that job. And I literally, and I knew that I was out of line in their standards, right? But I just had to say what I had to say. And I told them, I said, listen, I have been in an abusive relationship before, right? And this is very triggering to me. I feel as if I'm getting beat up just like when I was in that abusive relationship. That's how this is making me feel. And it was like but no, that's how I feel. I feel like y'all are abusing me right now. And I just wanted to share that because I want us to get to the place where we don't be so afraid and continue to let them beat on us and abuse us and exploit us that we just lay down and we take it. You have the right to express how you feel about something. And I'm just going to be real. If they would have let me go that day, I would have been all right. Because when they did finally let me go from that job, or when I got laid off from that job, I tell y'all what, I turned on my gospel and I said, God is a great God because he got me up out of there. So we got to get to the point where we're not allowing them just to, step all over us. For real.
Yeah.
For real.
Because it's tough to do that.
Yeah. And I get it because I was like that. I for many years, I just wouldn't say nothing. I knew what they were doing was wrong, but I just wouldn't say nothing. But thank God I got some boldness and I, started speaking up a little bit more for myself. So whose responsibility is it to change the language used when referring to at-risk populations?
Now, this is a real tough one, right? Because I hate to put more responsibility on those who are being exploited. I never want to do that because it's already a lot to be part of at-risk population and you're exploited. But some of us are empowered. There's a population of us within the exploited population that are empowered, and we gonna say something. We gonna have a little bit of boldness, and I think we have to locate that group who are willing to take the risk and encourage them to,
please,
but not abuse them, not use. So some people are like, "Oh yeah, you say something." I know you go say something.
Well, say it again because that's me. You say it. You go tell them. Well, I always gotta go tell them. But go ahead, bro. Help the people.
But we need to protect that group, right? So if we find a bold group of people and they're like, "No, we shouldn't be treated like this, and we need to say something." They should be protected, and then it should be their responsibility to curate the message, to say, okay, we're not speaking for nobody, and we're not, mansplaining for nobody, or, trying to steal someone's voice. We're just trying to amplify a message. And that group, whoever they are, has to be, what word do I want to use? They have to be ready.
Yeah.
They have to be ready because they're going to face the backlash, not only from the hyper violent exploiters, but also maybe the community that maybe is just comfortable in their exploitation, right? They might be like, you know what, it ain't that bad. It ain't that how they treating us. And I think that's a special group. It's hard for us to locate them, but they're radicals. They out there. And I'm going to tell y'all what, a lot of people don't like what Gen Z is doing, but baby, Gen Z is like
the ones. The ones, okay?
They're like, I don't care who you are. I don't care what you talking about. If you trying to exploit me, you could.
I'm going to let you have it, okay? In however I see fit, okay? I'm going to let you have it.
The kids ain't taking it.
For real. And listen, I work with them. So sometimes I just be like, y'all heard what they said. Because at the end of the day, it's real. And that's why a lot of the Gen Z population, you can't even have a conversation with them if you can't keep it a buck. They're not trying to hear it. They're not for the mess. They're not going at all.
And I want to, when we talk about who's responsible for changing that dialogue, I do want to say we all are, right? All are. Once and I've learned this just from watching the struggle between Israel and Palestine, right? They all are like, no, the what's happening to us is not right. And we all need to be saying something.
Yeah.
And I think we have to be honest with each other and say, like, is the only reason I expect other people to take the abuse or exploitation simply because I took it? Because there are a lot of parents and grandparents who mean well, but their message is, I took it, so you should take it too. And a lot of these kids are like, nah,
I ain't taking it.
I ain't taking it. And I think we have to bear the responsibility of understanding that sometimes the last time was the last time. Violence and abuse reaches its tipping point, and that's it.
Yeah.
Can y'all hear me?
Well, you're kind of going in and out now.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Are we back?
Still hear me?
Look, we get nervous. Like, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear? You can hear us fine?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Awesome. Okay. And before we go further, Angela, Latricia, if you guys are still on, please, please, please share this broadcast. I would love you dearly for it. We need to get this word out. We need people to join this conversation, as you all have done. Thank you again for joining us. And since we're on this topic, like, a lot of times, like you said, it has to be someone that would be able to, be bold and share their thoughts, or, kind of put in perspective some things. But what about, I like the fact that you said they need to feel protected, because as I said, like, I've been one of those people, and I've been called the ringleader, like I've been started a revolution, you know what I'm saying? And it's just like, okay, you put a negative light on me speaking up for being exploited. You understand what I'm saying? Like, what can we do, like, as far as the protection, to make people understand that this is what they do to those that are willing to step up and be in that space? They tend to, peg them as, a fire starter.
For sure. For sure. And I mean, that's classic union busting, right? That's classic, like, solidarity dismantling. You take the one person who seems to be getting everybody together or getting everybody's attention, and you punish them publicly. You make them feel bad, and then that has a ripple effect on everyone, right? I think we have to work on our solidarity and our advocacy for one another, right? So, first of all, we have to be able to do our own risk analysis, right? Say, okay, you feel like you need to say this, and you have yes, you can say it if you choose to, but here are the risks that you will face, and here's how we as a community can support you through whatever risk you're about to take. Right?
That's good.
Conversations. Some conversations lead to different outcomes. You could end up homeless. You could end up without your job. You could destroy your credit. You could destroy all these things. And some people willing to take it to the wall. Like, they like, okay, I'm with it. But we want people to feel part of a community. We want people to say, we're not just trying to set you up so you can come out here and start a fire, and then you end up in a messed up situation. You look at the civil rights movements of the 1960s. They was making sure, hey, you finna go out here and you might go to jail, but we have people who will get you your bond. We have people who are, we got a system in.
And you cut out. You say we have a system in place.
Yeah, we have a system in place that makes sure that you're taken care of and that your risk as minimal as possible. You're gonna face something that's as minimal as possible.
I love it. Absolutely. When we talk about, over exploitation, who's responsible for measuring the rate of change when it comes to the language used regarding at-risk populations?
Okay, they're not gonna like me, but community activists and leaders.
Yeah.
Community activists and leaders should start saying, because if you're in those conversations where they're writing grants, where they're designing programs, where they're rolling out initiatives, you have a seat at the table. And you
Yes.
have to be bold, and you have to say, don't say, disadvantage, say overexploited.
Exploited. Yes.
You have to say that when you're writing it, so that we can keep sending the message up to say, we know and you know that you've been fooling on us for a long time,
Yeah.
right? So, for example, Abbott Labs. Abbott Labs is clearly overexploiting North Chicago. Anybody
Absolutely.
with any eyeballs, any ears, any nose, any mouth can tell that they're exploiting North Chicago. You got the lakefront, you're doing something to the air. We got all sorts of cancerous risks. There's all sorts of stuff going on, and there's no direct to school to job placement. There's just nothing there.
Nothing.
So
Yep.
I think anybody who is in any conversation with them should feel empowered to be like, yo, you exploiting these people. Like, you exploiting these people. Like, what are...
And not take the money first and then try to say something. Let's just keep it a buck. We don't do this foo-foo on Radical Radio. Hey, let's talk. All right. If y'all want to talk, we're gonna talk. Don't take the money first and then be trying to rah-rah. We need you to rah-rah first and then still talk to them about giving the money to those that they are exploiting. Hello?
Yeah. And I think that's the thing when we talk about transparency, right? We start to understand that even these little gifts, like Angela just said, these little gifts, oh, you building a school. You should build a school, and you should do you should do a lot more. You should make sure that the parents of the children that go to that school have a job at your facility. There's so you should be doing. And I'm gonna keep it 100 just like you did. You don't want us to do no EPA testing. You don't want us to come out and start swabbing all the communities of North Chicago to say how much is your cancer risk from living next to them smokestacks and all that stuff, right? And that's what I'm talking about getting that conversation started and prying it open and starting to say, okay, who's been exploiting us? What does that exploitation look like? And how long has it been going on? And that really changes the dynamic. It really changes the dynamic of the conversation, because disadvantaged people are always taught to be grateful, right? Take this little
nugget we giving you, and be happy with what you got.
And we kind of absorb that because we're like, oh, it's my quality of disadvantage. It's my fault that I'm disadvantaged. But if you say, no, I'm being exploited, it changes that conversation, and it really starts to make you rethink those transactions.
And I want to say something to that, because just think about it, y'all. And I pray that a lot of people in the community of Lake County would listen to this, because just think, if the community leaders that are, that do have businesses and nonprofits and things like that, just think if you did document just use the word in your documents, in your grants and things like that, just using the word. If everything coming out of Lake County is saying overexploited, 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 then they would know and hear us to say that, hey, not only are we saying we're unexploited or overexploited, we know we're overexploited. We know that we're being overexploited. A lot of times, like they don't think that we know these things. Like, we really have to empower one another to understand and speak it, because that is what it is, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And Angela said, with all the kids having asthma, absolutely. Absolutely.
To Angela's point, when you talk about exploitation and then you just take a company or you take a situation, it immediately leads to measurement,
Mm-hmm.
right? You see how she could easily say, okay, they doing this and it's these kids out here with the asthma, and then you got a population that you
Mm-hmm.
can measure, and you can say, look at the impact that your exploitation, over exploitation has had. And
Yes.
how we can measure your gifts and say, is that actually measuring up? No,
Yeah,
because
because it's like this. You feel
that
me? Yeah.
exactly. and it
Yeah.
and it and it makes it easier for us to have this conversation amongst one another, because it doesn't get so academic.
Yeah.
When you're being overexploited and somebody just putting 2 plus 2 together, you like, and we know what it's like if somebody trying to hit a lick off you. We know what it's like if somebody trying to play you. You can smell that coming a mile away. So
That feeling in the pit of your stomach gets a rolling, all of that stuff. Absolutely.
yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's one of the greatest things that we have, as Black and brown communities and people, is that it doesn't, like, a lot of people want to make it seem like you can't have these conversations because you're not at a certain level or you don't have a certain degree. No, we all can have these conversations. Reason being is because we're living them.
Yep.
We're in the midst of it, so we know what it feels like, we know what it looks like, we know what we can hear, and we automatically say, oh, okay, I see what you're trying to do there. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? So it makes a difference. All right, so what advice do you have for those who find it hard to demand a change of language regarding at-risk populations?
So I can tell you what I've had to do.
He be going in, y'all. He better be. He better tell y'all because he be going in. He be like, hold up, wait.
No,
Go ahead, Billy.
I literally have to write out what I plan to say, and I have to practice it,
Yeah.
because this conversation is not meant to encourage people who are already exploited to put themselves in a position of further harm. I want to say that very adamantly, very clearly.
Yeah.
If you know that right now you just can't say anything because you in between a rock and a hard place, and you need that gig and you need whatever situation, I pray that you're safe, but I understand your choice to be quiet to prevent further harm. I want to, and I stand in solidarity with you in that choice if that's what works best for you right now. Like, so
Absolutely.
get in these conversations, we get rah rah rah, and then somebody do something, and then it's like, well, you didn't,
Absolutely.
So I just want to say, sometimes you just have to be quiet because you're trying to avoid further harm. Because that's just part of our existence. This is part of what happens in the system.
Right.
But my advice would be, measure your risk, like we said before. Make calculated risks. Make calculated decisions to say, okay, maybe I can't go in there and punch my boss in the face. Maybe I can't do that because that's too much risk, even though I might want to.
Listen, y'all got the right crowd tonight. Because, yes, felt it before.
But what can I do? Write it out. Write it out. And say, what can I say? And what language can I adjust to make sure that I am speaking about my exploitation in a language that really lets them know I know what's going on. I know what's going on, and I know what you're doing, and I need it to stop. I would also encourage you to do research and work around boundary conversations. Boundary conversations are really tough, but they take a lot of practice. They take a lot of research to say, how am I going to say this? You might be having boundary conversations with your friends or family or employers or others. You have to practice. And sometimes you have to go to your mirror every day and practice what you're going to say, so that when the time comes, it can come off your tongue easier.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that would be my advice. Definitely measure your risk, practice what you're going to say, and find someone who's in solidarity with you. Find
Yeah,
someone in solidarity with you and talk it through with a trusted person, someone who really
absolutely.
and can help you see like, yo, if you do that, you're gonna go to the left. But if you do that, you're gonna go to the right. And if you do that, you're gonna go to the center. And I'm here to support you in whichever one of those
Whichever
decisions
way
that
you go. And I will say, if you don't mind me adding to that, one of the things is, I know it's easy for us to, when we're being overexploited, it's easy for some of us to pop off. I get it, and I would encourage you always to take the time to respond versus react, because when we're reacting, we're in an emotional state. When you respond, you give yourself that time, which goes back to Billy saying, write down what you're going to say, write down how you'll respond, because it gives you time to really think about it, you know what I'm saying, and having that person there to bounce that idea off of. Hey, this is what I wrote down, this is what I would say. That's a good basis, a good foundation for you not to turn the situation left, right? Another thing that I will always do for myself is instances where I felt like it was happening, I would write those instances down, because a lot of times people don't understand. They may say things that they don't understand are very over exploiting, right? And Billy and I have been in several places where I've heard him say, "Hey, why do you say that? Why would you say this instead of saying this? Because when you say this would make the notion or serve the notion of something that they're exploiting us by," right? And he would give them an example of something that they could say that wouldn't be taken that way. So again, when we're talking about understanding, these terms and understanding how these different words make us feel, like that's why it's so important for us to continue to read and understand how these things make us feel, because you want to find a different approach, right? You want to find a different approach on how you can give them some guidance on what they're doing. It only helps. Oh, tell Billy he needs to visit the Museum of Afro Mestizo Culture
where
in there, in that place.
let me look.
Can you see it? There it go.
Okay. Oh, it's in the same state where I'm at. Okay, Angela, I'm actually trying to get to Costa Chica, which is where a lot of the Afro mestizo culture is. So I'm excited. Okay, I wrote it down.
And look, Angela always, she know every girl, she just know everything about every place. She be like, go here, go there. Thank you, Angela, because you are a wealth of knowledge. We was talking about you today. I'm gonna call you shortly. But yeah, so I just want to add those little tidbits to it. But Billy, this is great conversation as always. I don't know about y'all, but this is the kind of conversation that it helps me. I love it. I love having these discussions with Billy. Angela is one of those people that I really have great dialogue with. Situate yourself around people that just want to talk about change and evolution and flourishing and thriving and prospering. Okay, those great terms that are the foundation of this awesome collaboration between Radical Radio and the North Chicago think tank. Real talk. Like, the goal is that we would really be able to flourish, prosper, and thrive, not only as a people, but also as the communities in which we reside in. It's important. We don't want to always just have, the negative vibes rolling. We want to change for more positive, higher frequency, living, higher frequency beings. And I talked about this on Radical Radio, just, making sure that we're vibrating at the high frequency that we're supposed to. We're not supposed to be vibrating at such a low frequency. And there's so much that goes into that, the food that we eat. That's why Billy be like, they got a mango tree down here and y'all don't even know nothing about it. You understand what I'm saying? Like, it's real. Growing our own food, like really, changing the way we operate is important for us in this day right now.
Yep.
Billy, can you share with the listeners where they can find you? We do have his Facebook here, which is right here on the screen. If you're not on the screen, it's https // North Chicago Think Tank. Y'all know how that go. Look up North Chicago Think Tank on Facebook, okay?
Yep.
And then you can also follow Billy on Instagram. What's your Instagram?
Black and Abroad Official. Black and Abroad Official. You can follow all of my adventures all over Asia, into Mexico, into Europe, and all the places that I've been. So, yeah, definitely check me out.
Absolutely, absolutely. Again, what a wonderful radical talk with the North Chicago Think Tank. We will be back in another Wednesday, not next Wednesday, but the following Wednesday. This broadcast, this collaboration is going to go until May, the beginning of May. So we have several more shows to go. Please share the broadcast. Please make sure that you invite some people on these Wednesdays when we have this dialogue. We want to have more feedback. We want to have more people that we can discuss this with and see what you're thinking about it. Billy, as always, I thank you for just being the dopest brother that I have and the most cultured brother that I know. Thank you so much for all of your inspiration, all of your motivation, and your great discussions. We will see you guys again not next Wednesday, the Wednesday after. I got to find a better way to say that. I'm going to figure it out, y'all. But we'll holler at y'all in a couple Wednesdays. How about that? Bye.
Hey dreamers, my name is Maxi, owner of Elnor Maxwell. We're a company that specializes in show production, virtual assistants, and more. Recently, I have published 2 books. My first book, All My Broken Crayons Still Color, is a daily affirmation book and a journal. My second book, Love You More, Grieving Isn't Easy and Healing Hurts, is a book about the 5 stages of grief and how you can start your process of healing from grief. Both of my books are now available on Amazon. So, let's be motivated, let's be encouraged, let's start the process of healing, and let's continue to glow through whatever it is we're going through.
Yay!